Super.
Don't forget he's in Greece.
What was that, Vince? Okay, so for anybody that wants to watch it later, if there's any bits that we're particularly interested in when we talk about, feel free to give it a rewatch. So, George, Kephalos, this here is Kephalos. We are on the southwesternmost point of the island of Kos. So we are down here where the blue dot is. Kos city is up here. Then you've got Turkey. This is all Turkey here. Bodrum's there. Normal wind direction we have here is this way. So we get northwest winds normally. In the summer, it can be a little bit more west, a little bit more like this. It's a Meltemi wind. So I'm sure most people have heard of the Meltemi wind at some point. It's the wind that feeds all of the Aegean. So it starts up in the Black Sea and it comes down past Istanbul and wraps around the side of Turkey. And because the way of Turkey is, as it wraps around, it's accelerated. So if anybody's ever been to sailing at Rhodes or Karpathos or the eastern side of Crete, it's all the same wind. Naxos also, Paros. The wind's the same. And Kephalos is particularly good because the wind's offshore, it stays very flat. So we never get any waves, anything like that here in the normal direction. And there's a very small mountain range. This is White Rock of Kos. This is a hotel. And this very small mountain range gives us a very local thermal wind. So you can normally say, like tomorrow, we've got a forecast of 25 knots. So it's probably going to be more like 30, 35 knots. So you can always add a little bit more to the forecast here because it doesn't account for the local thermal wind. Your bay is about 2.5 kilometers long. So you've got nice big runs before you ever have to worry about turning around. So for those of you who don't like turning around, just like going in a straight line, Kephalos is perfect. Those that like to turn around a lot, it's also perfect as long as you've got me shouting at you to turn around a lot. For those of you who like to fall in, perfect because the water's warm. You just wear board shorts here, unlike Grimwith or Fraysop, which is normally always wetsuit weather. Yeah, I think that answers George's question. George, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, we should get questions from you guys, really. So
yeah,
we'll supervise the questions.
I was going to say, well, if you supervise the question, I'll shout the.
Oh,
to
right,
repeat the question down.
look, right, so you can twitch or put your hand up or do something. Oh, just touch your nose, Pete.
I'm always interested on fin size, on whether you should have different fins, whether most people just stick with the fin that came with the board, and whether it's actually worth buying any different fin sizes.
Did you hear that, Ollie?
Yeah, I mean, if everybody speaks at the same volume as Pete, you are obsolete, Vince. I won't need you.
Result.
Yeah, so fin size, you're right, Pete. People normally, and I do it as well. When I get a new board, I stick that fin in it, and I normally just leave it. But I think there are definitely situations and reasons to have a wider selection of fins. I mean, normally the fin, it depends. Now specifically about kind of free ride boards. The fin that the board comes with will be quite a big range, for sure. For example, if you take, let's say, a starboard Futura, 120 litre starboard Futura probably comes with about a 38 centimetre fin, I would say. I would say for like your average run-of-the-mill windsurfer who's maybe can carve jibe, can water start, that fin's going to do them in probably 80% of the conditions that they need to go in, or that they want to go in. Times when you might want to think about changing fin is like in unusual conditions. So maybe if you're going out and it's extremely light winds, you don't have bigger equipment, you might opt to go for a slightly bigger fin. Slightly bigger fin will give you a little bit more lift. It'll help get the board pop it up out the water onto the plane a little bit earlier. Smaller fins generally you use when the wind gets a little bit stronger. So if you're down at Grimwith and it was like really blowing a hoolie, but you didn't have a sail that you could drop down, if you did have a smaller fin, you could pop that in, and you might find you have a little bit more control, because that lift at some point will start to work against you. And the lift coming from the board can help you or make you lose control of it, because the wind will start to get underneath it. It is also important to talk about the fact that variables in windsurfing never work independently. So, for example, you could keep the larger fin in, but which would maybe have too much lift in strong wind, but you could sort of counteract that by shifting the mast foot further forwards and also raising a boom slightly, because that would help push the weight going into the mast foot further forwards, which would help hold the nose down. So for me, I mean, to answer your question specifically, I think if you've kind of got the money or the funds to have a couple of different types of fin, I definitely would. But spend some decent, if you're going to get some different fins and you can feel the difference, spend some money to get some decent ones. If you're sailing with fins that are all damaged and chipped up, I probably wouldn't bother. You can normally counteract the negative effects that you're feeling from that fin in some other way. Like I said, for example, the boom height, the harness line length also can account for that. And this is where windsurfing kind of gets infinitely complicated.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Ooh. Can you make yourself big on the screen?
I didn't hear that one.
That was Kate's question.
She said, go full screen. She's saying you're better.
Oh, am I not in full screen? Sorry. Sorry, Kate.
Oh,
There we go.
That's big enough. Yeah, it is. That'll do. That's that was easy. Right, Jill,
I was going to ask about fins as well.
Yep.
If you get a new fin, is it okay to buy one second-hand off the internet, or do you really need to see it? And can you tell if it's damaged?
I would always go and look at it in person. And like I said, especially if you're spending 15 quid on one, unless it's some kind of alternate discipline. Say if you're always sailing, if you've got a free wave board, so a board that's a mixture between a free ride board and a wave board. If you're always sailing a free ride fin in it, if you're just buying a cheap wave fin, I would say it's not the end of the world if it comes and it's a little bit damaged and stuff like that. But if you've already got a fin for each and you're looking to kind of improve on the fins that you've got, I would definitely go and look at them first. There's things you want to look out for on fins is any kind of delamination. So it's basically just compressed layers of either fiberglass or carbon, and it delaminates. All the layers start to split open. Normally happens from an impact. Any very big chips, especially on the leading edge of the fin. The problem with that is because of the shape. So the fins normally, this part of my hand where my wrist starts, this is the front of the fin. It's always thicker at the front. And the problem if you get big chips there is it's hard to reshape it correctly. If you sand it down yourself, you'll normally shape it and it will normally have a little wiggle in it. It's very difficult to get it perfectly symmetrical again. On the trailing edge, where it's a lot thinner, it's normally a little bit easier to get a sharp edge back to it. Also, another thing I've seen quite a lot is the screw that goes through so especially in power box fins, which is the usual type of fin that most people use. With the power box is a bolt that goes straight through the board into the fin and pulls it up into the box. And those fins have got a bolt in it with a thread that the bolt that goes to the board sits in. Sometimes that's loose. I've seen them, people come down to the beach and they're missing and stuff like that. And that normally happens if it's been cracked. So if someone's had a big knock on a rock, then it'll crack open that part of the fin. And that normally is done by brands as a kind of safety mechanism, so that rather than ripping the entirety of the back of the board off, you just take the fin out of the board. But sometimes they kind of get partially snapped. And then just the pressure when you're windsurfing. So for example, if in a carve jibe, there can be up to a ton of pressure on the fin, which is a lot. And that can be, if there's any damage to the fin, that can be exacerbated by that pressure quite easily. So if you're, like I said, you're spending some decent money, always go and check. If it's an alternate discipline, so for example, if you always sail free ride fins, you want to try a wave fin, you don't mind if it's cheap and a bit knackered, looking at it probably isn't the most important thing, really. Hope that answers your question, Jill.
Yeah, interesting, because I sellotape my little grass nut in because it's loose.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to do what we got to do. I've also, like, we have a lot of, in the centre, we have a couple of old freestyle boards, and they've got slot box fins. A slot box is the fin goes in, there's two bolts that just go down like through the bottom of the board and just into the fin. And it's a rubbish system because the bolt it screws directly into the fin, and over time it damages it. It will wear out the bits where the bolt's going into the fin, it just wears it out. So we just tape them up to make them fit again. You know, it's not the end of the world, really. It makes them, if they work, they work. Yeah.
How important is it that the fin has got to be flush, completely flush in the box? As in, if there's a couple of, if it's hanging down just a couple of mils because it doesn't quite fit, how much of an effect does that have?
It's not the end of the world, but it will make a difference. You know, I mean, none of the slalom guys are going to sail with bits of fin hanging out or too far into the board. It will sit like completely flush for the water flow. As recreational windsurfers, again, it's how much time do you want to put into, if you've got the time to sand out the fin, because it can take a while. I think a lot of sanding to get it to fit like just perfectly. If you've got the time, do it. If you haven't got the time, I wouldn't worry too much about it, Kate. And it's normal for fins not to fit. You know, especially I've seen it a lot with foils, is boards that have like a deep tuttle foil box. The fins are either way too tight or way too loose. Too tight's easier to fix. It's just a case of slowly sand down the sides until it fits snug. If it's too loose, that's a little bit more of a problem. And normally also involves a lot of gaffer tape or duct tape to make it fit. I mean, normally with power box, anything other than a tuttle or a deep tuttle, so they're the boxes that have two screws rather than just one. Other than those two types, it's rare that the fin won't fit perfectly. And it's rare that also if you buy a starboard board and it comes with a Drake fin, that normally should fit perfectly if you've got the board with the fin that it came with. It's when you start buying third-party fins. So for example, K4 fins, I'm sure most of you've heard of the plastic ones. They aren't, I think they are with RRD for some of their fins, but a lot of the fins aren't sort of designated to a brand. And then sometimes they might not fit perfectly. You might have to sand them out a little bit.
Are those K4, those yellow ones,
Yeah.
the bit cramped?
Yeah, the plastic, fantastic.
Yeah. So we're meant to get, is it MFK or MFC?
KFC.
KFC, sounds good. Might be struggle to windsurf with a KFC in your bottom of your board. I've just started using the K4 fins. They are significantly cheaper than other brands. And from what I've used so far, it's top. It's really good. I've not noticed it being, so a lot of people said they're a bit slower. I've used the freestyle fin and the wave fin, and both of them are ace. Really good. Nothing bad to say about them.
I find they wear down a bit. They're easy to
Yeah, I think if they take a couple of hits, they'll probably get pretty knackered and they'll struggle to sand. But I guess you could put it in the oven and melt it and then remold it if you really wanted to.
Any other questions? I've got a question if no one else has, but I don't want to. Oh, yeah, go on, Pete, yeah.
Francis on
Yeah.
Ollie from the
Hey, up, Pete.
Hey.
Just wondering, I'm quite likely to come out and visit you on your island. It's a two-tier question, I suppose. Bringing your own kit out. If I bring my own kit out, obviously I can come to your centre and use it there, or use your own. But if I come without my kit, would you use my kit because I'm adventurous, both on my forwards and travelling about? Have you got kit I can take elsewhere around the island? You give me kit to take out on hire.
Vince, can you just repeat that for? I heard bits of it, but I missed some bits.
So he was basically asking if he takes his own kit out, fair enough. But if he gets kit from you, can he take it elsewhere on cost?
No, it needs to stay in the bay. That's purely from a safety point of view. In Greece, if you rent equipment from a centre, we are liable for you while you're using it. Places like Tenerife, it doesn't operate the same way. For example, in Tenerife, if you go to El Medno, you can go to TWS, rent some gear, and then you can take it to different places. You're reliant on your own ability to windsurf then. To be honest, on costs, there isn't anywhere else I would rather be than Kefalos. There is a wave spot called Theologus, which is on even further into our corner, but that will only work, it'll work at this time of year, and then it'll work in the very late season. But in the summer, it's never that windy over there. If you want to bring your own gear, to be honest, if you've got some decent gear, I'd recommend it. It's so easy to take gear, like with EasyJet, per kilogram, it works out cheaper than a suitcase. So when I came here, I had to buy an extra 15 kilograms. So the 15 kilogram suitcase was £38, and a 32 kilogram windsurfing bag is 45. For a 32 kilogram windsurfing bag, I've got a board, a surfboard, 2 sails, a mast, a boom, an extension, a wetsuit, and a harness, all in one bag. So it's, if you go in somewhere for 2 weeks, for example, I would always, if I go anywhere more than a week, I take my own gear with me now, especially if I've got a good setup. If I'm unsure about my equipment, then I'd rent, because then I've got the option to, I can change, I can swap. The only problem you have if you bring your own gears, let's say, you look at the forecast and it doesn't look super strong, so you think, I'll take a 6 meter, 7 meter, and you get to Kefalos and it blows its tits off for 2 weeks. You're gonna be really meaved, and you'll wish you'd bought or just rented some equipment, or bought some smaller gear. But I guess the grass is always greener, isn't it?
Yeah, go on, Richard.
All right, Ollie, how's the jaw?
It's all right. It's about gone now, Rich. Thanks.
You look a lot better than you did when I last saw you.
Yeah. For anybody, I've just had a wisdom tooth taken out, and I look like Quagmire for a week and a half. Desperate Dan.
The question I was going to ask is on Kefalos, what kit is available to hire? What size?
So gear we have windsurfing, we have sail loft sails. So for anybody that's seen me windsurfing, it's the sails I use. We have the cross, which is their free ride sail. We've got from 8 meter to 5.5 in that. Then we have the quad, which is a 4-button wave sail. So we use that for the smaller sails. So that's 5.2 down to 3. And then this year we've also got the curve, which is a new wave sail from them. It's a 5-button wave sail. And I think we've got from 6.2 down to 4 we've ordered in them. There's about, fully rigged in the summer, we'll have about 120 sails rigged. They're all rigged on 80% masts, RDM masts, and we rig them with the Chinook alloy. They're called like the V-grip booms, so they're not cylindrical. They're shapes like that, the booms. Supposed to be more ergonomic. Most people like them, some people don't. So we do have some sails that have got cylindrical booms on them. Harness lines adjustable from 26 up to 34, I think. And then boards, we've got Patrick. So we've got Patrick, we've got the F race is included. That's like a slalom board. We've got the F ride, we've got the F cross, which is a free ride board and then a wave board. We've got the Fanatic Gecko, the Fanatic Blast, the Fanatic Ray. And there's some other little bits, you know, we've got some older F2 stuff, some vibes still. But for most part, most of the gear is never more than 2 years old. This year we've replaced all of the Patricks. So there's going to be about 30 new Patricks, which are meant to be on their way at the minute. So it's a good range of gear to go at, really.
What's the biggest board, bearing in mind I'm not known for my light-footedness?
What was that, Rich? Sorry?
So what's the biggest literage? Because I'm not known for my being light-footed.
I mean, we've got everything from 240 down to 59, I think, with a couple of speed boards.
240 will do for me.
I thought I'd be ready for the 59, Rich. One on each foot.
I'll get off with a flip-flop. Cheers, Ollie.
Yeah, go on.
Do you sell the boards at the end of the season in England?
We don't sell them. We've not sell them in England previously. If someone really wants something, if you come out, try it, really like it, you can speak to us, and I'm sure I can find a way to bring it back for you, or you could just take it back there and then. Depends what time of year you come. Normally we don't, because normally I mean, it depends also, you know, how long we've had the boards, but for the most part, we can also put you in contact with dealers. You know, if you really like, for example, like if we get the new Patricks in this year, we'd be very reluctant to sell any of them then. We'd probably hold on to them until at least the end of next year. But for example, like, you know, some of the boards like the older F2 Vibes, they're like, I think 10 or 12 years old now, but they're awesome. They're such good boards and they're indestructible as well. So, you know, if someone came and said, I really like this, I really want to take it home, we would say, you know, of course we can sort something out. So it always depends on the board, how long we've had it, whether we can get it back to the UK. But in some cases, yes, in others, not.
Oh, you haven't had time. Yeah, your turn. Caroline hasn't had a question.
Gaza.
All right. I never mess about with my buttons at all. Should you ever tighten them or?
Yeah, so again, it's the same. If you had an aeroplane wing, if you look at an aeroplane, it's always nice and smooth. There's never any big wrinkles in it. It's the same. We have the same thing, and it's the same. Windsurfing sails the same thing. It's just upright. So if you've got any big wrinkles in your sail, fiddle about your battens and try and get rid of them as much as you can. It's not. You will only ever get rid of vertical ones. If there's any horizontal lines, this is normally coming from either your downhaul or your outhaul. This won't be from the battens. And if it's any like severe wrinkling, this also probably won't be a batten. Normally, I mean, it's rare now that brands will have battens that are prone to breaking in newer sales that have been sort of the past 10 years. It's very rare now that people break battens. But it can happen, and you can see it quite easily if it is, because the sail will look like it's been folded in half where it's broken. There'll be a big crinkle. But yeah, you can faff around and try and get any small horizontal, small vertical wrinkles. They'll come out, and it will make a difference to your sail.
Leave it alone.
What was that?
If there's no wrinkles, just
leave it alone. Then it's fine. Yeah. Most brands now, they will tension everything in-house before it's sold. So, for example, the sales I've just got, I don't need to do anything. They've already been done. And that's quite normal now. You don't need to do anything. You know, you only ever need to do anything now if it breaks, which, like I said, also is quite rare for battens to break, to be honest. It has to be quite a big catapult to break a batten.
I've got a burning question. I didn't really want to ask you. But no, the question, it's been bothering me for a whole year since you did your session last year.
Yeah.
Because my problem is I'm usually overpowered. So
yeah.
like I put loads of downhaul on, and then so then I put outhaul on. And I think last year you said you can't have loads of downhaul and loads of outhaul. You've got to have one or the other.
Yeah.
That's terrible because I use both. So if I use, is that like impossible? Is that terrible? Because that's what I do.
I mean, it's not. I mean, you like so you got. I was saying earlier, you've got to make do with what you've got. But if you're always, I mean, it's also the kind of common thing is when it's windy, you think like I need to take a small sail, and because it's windy, I need to pull loads of downhaul on and take all the shape out the sail. But if it's windy and you've already picked the small sail, you rig the small sail like normal. Don't pull all the shape out of it. If you're really overpowered all the time, George, make sure your foot straps are right outside. Make the lines a bit longer, the boom a little bit higher. This will help. Slightly smaller fin, smaller boards can help.
I do all that.
In an ideal world, get a smaller sail.
I do. So you can't have. If I had loads of downhaul, I can't put loads of outhaul on then. Is that going to just knacker it, or is that?
Yeah. So what happens? So when you tension the downhaul, you bend the mast so much, yeah. And when you pull outhaul on, you'll bend it even more. And there's an optimal bend always. So sails are designed with the mast at a certain bend, yeah. And they should always be rigged really there or thereabouts. There's a small amount of range you can play with, but if you bend it too much, you'll take all the shape out the sail. So there's too much loose leech up here, and that causes lots of problems because it puts the center of effort way too far down in the sail, and it makes the sail feel very, very twitchy. And like when you get hit by a gust, you feel like nothing happens. It just kind of shakes in your hands. Yeah. So it really has to be, I mean, I would always rig like the sail tells you to and start from there and then make small adjustments, but it has to be small. If you start making big ones, you're going to really upset the trim of how everything works.
So you can have a lot of outhaul if you haven't got much downhaul. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, some sails are rigged for different. So for example, freestyle sails, that's exactly how they should be rigged. So a little bit less downhaul, a little bit more outhaul. And that reduces the amount of loose leech that we have slightly up at the top, which gives us a bit more oomph in the sail, which is why freestylers can go on small sails and get planing quite fast. Yeah. Normally, that feeling just results in being catapulted all the time. But when you get used to it, it results in forward momentum. Slalom sails, absolute opposite. Lots of downhaul, but I'm sure you may have seen slalom sailors that use the adjustable outhaul. Is the boom moves because they've literally got no outhaul on the sail. They're just relying on the downhaul. And they'll pull a little bit of outhaul on if they need a little bit of control. Yeah, so if they get really powered up, they might pull a little bit on. So if they're going very far downwind, they might pull a little bit on. Otherwise, the boom, you can move it with your hand. It's that loose. Yeah. Different sails are rigged different ways, but be very careful about making big adjustments with either the downhaul or the outhaul, because it will really ruin the trim of the sail.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just to add on to that then, how reliable are the markings on the sail? Because I've always been told you do it by look rather than by the numbers on the sail.
Vince, you've got to repeat that for us. I heard markings on the sail, how reliable they are. It was a bit after.
Yeah, so I think the question was, how much should you rely on the markings on the sail versus looking at it by eye?
Depends on the experience. The markings on the sail will work, providing that you're using all the same equipment they've used when they've done the marking. So, for example, making sure that the boom sits on the right place on the mast. Yeah, that's why most brands now, they will do the boom length and they'll do +or -2. Because that +or -2 depends where the boom sits in the cutout. Yeah, if it's right at the top, it has to be a little bit longer. Yeah, if it sits in the middle, it can be a little bit shorter because that adjusts, that movement of the boom alters the length of it. Yeah. You can try that next time, is rig your sail right with your boom in the middle, and then just undo the clamp and kick it up. All the outhaul disappears from the sail. Yeah? So like I said, if you're using everything the same, the marking should be good. I imagine they will be. But you've also got to account for stuff like, so for example, this big one is extensions. The way brands measure extension changes so much. And I think we spoke about this in the last year's conversation. But for example, there's the bit of plastic with the button on the extension at the bottom. Some people start from the bottom as 0. Some brands start from the bottom as 0, and other brands start from the top as 0. Yeah. So you open a bit of a can of worms, really, because you don't know if you don't know where 0 is. Say, for example, if you have a Severn sail with a Severn mast on a Severn extension, quids in, it's all going to work fine. But if you've got a Severn mast with a Severn sail, but you've got a Chinook extension, then you're going to have to maybe make adjustments. Yeah. For example, my Chinook extension is not the one that Sailloft use. I have to always add 2 centimeters to the downhaul to make it right. Yeah. So in an ideal world, if you're on Severn sails, get a Severn mast and a Severn extension. It'll save you a headache. Depends how much you're willing to spend to save the headache, though. Otherwise, Rich, it takes a little bit of faffing around to just find the ideal spot. Looking at it by eye can be good. For the downhaul, the best way is if you stand, so rig your sail with the boom on, so it's as if you're ready to get in the water. Stand on the mast extension and push it to the floor, and the top gets lifted up, and then get someone else to go and stand on that end, so the mast gets bent. Where that mast bends is the same way it bends when a gust hits it, and you can see how the sail opens. So it should get quite floppy up at the top, and it should get really tight in the middle of the sail, where the centre of effort is around the boom. If that's happening, it's probably going to be good. If when you do that, you start to get loads like loose sail, where there should be tightness, then there might be something up. Yeah?
And you are allowed to ask more than 2 questions, or 3 even. So have you got one, Kate?
Well, I had one from earlier. It was what you were saying before about taking your own kit. How many sails have you ever travelled with, and what's the maximum that's realistic to physically move through an airport and get somewhere?
That depends on how flirty you are with the men/women at the check-in. Or how cheap. I mean, like, for example, when we came back from Cape Town one year, we didn't have enough money to pay for the gear onto the flights. We had 9 bags between 2 of us, and they let water skiing equipment go on for free. So we told them we were the professional water skiing team and that we'd just been in Cape Town testing prototypes. And we luckily had 1 bag that had just masts and booms in it. So we opened that up for them, they looked, and then they waved them all through. We got 9 bags on for free. I've seen people put their knee under bags. I've seen all sorts, but I wouldn't bother because it causes all sorts of anxiety before you fly. Normally, like I said, like my bag is, so 1 board, 2 sails, 2 masts, and a boom. That's normally, you always be in weight. Obviously depends on the bag also. So some bags are heavier, ones with wheels are a bit heavier, but a little bit easier. Ones without are normally a bit lighter. For example, I just use like a triple board bag. You can buy them, like Gump sells them. You buy a triple board bag. I bought a bag that fits 3 boards, but they're the best for traveling with. I know Ben Profit did on YouTube a video when he was flying to Cape Town of getting everything into a single board bag, of how to pack it and stuff as well.
Do you take 2 sails then?
2 sails, yeah, definitely. You definitely get 2 sails in, and 2 rigs even. So 2 sails, 2 boards, 2 boom, 2 masts, and a boom.
So you look at the forecast and just kind of gauge which 2 you take.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah. And you could bring your own gear and then just rent if you needed to 1-2 days. It was really windy and you really wanted to use a smaller sail. You could just rent 1 or 2, 1 or 2 hours for a sail. The only thing we have to account for is the fact that we don't have loads of room. So you need to tell us in advance. You need to ask because sometimes we don't have much space. As I'm sure some of you have been in peak season before and been in the centre, it's pretty like jam-packed with sails. And it can be a little bit difficult to find a room for people.
Yep, Stuart.
Hi, Ollie, Stuart.
Hey, Stu.
Going back to this extension, because I think we talked about it last year. Are you saying that the tune-up measurement is in the centre plastic bit before? Because I've actually considered that, because I still haven't sorted out my tune-up linking plastic extension from the distance. It's different every time I do it. You said
Could you repeat that into the laptop for me? I didn't hear that very well. Broke up a little bit.
So the question was, with a Chinook extension, does it measure to the button? Because he's struggling with setup as to whether it's there or somewhere else.
My Chinook one, I've got the blue aluminium one, Stu. I think it's a couple of years old now. It's long, like the really big one. It's RDM, and that is measured from the bottom. That's 0 from the very base.
I have these as a series that have a little measure on them, so I can always measure it.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a pain actually, because it actually knows the distance, and that just confuses things. You have to do the same thing, because invariably it doesn't match. That's
I wouldn't be surprised with Ezzy sails if it is rigged on Chinook, because they're both American. I imagine Graham's probably using Chinook accessories if he doesn't have his own extensions. But yeah, so mine's definitely from the very bottom because it starts at like 4. That's the lowest it goes to. It doesn't go any lower than 4.
Oh, yeah, Rob, yeah.
Yeah. Have you any advice about buying smaller sails for sort of freestyle wave use? There's 4 batten sails and 5 batten sails. Can you explain the pros and cons?
Yeah, so 4 batten wave. So I prefer 4 batten wave sails. You feel it a lot more on your back arm. So you kind of feel that you don't take so much power is not taken in the harness because the sail's a little bit less stable. You've got to use your arms a little bit more. It's a little bit lighter because it's got 1 less batten in it. Generally, they are considered 4 batten wave sails to be a bit more maneuver orientated. So, for example, Rob, if you're going for like duck jibes or downwind 360s, or you want to do a little bit of jumping, anything like that when it's windy, you might find a 4 batten wave sail a little bit better. The 5 batten wave sails, they are a little bit less punchy, a little bit more stable. But overall, probably make you go a bit faster. They've probably got a bit more sort of controllable power than the 4 batten wave sails. But they move a little bit, they're a bit more sluggish. They feel a little bit slower in the hands. I know a lot of people prefer 4 battens, especially up north, but down south, it seems to be a lot more people on 5 battens. And it's probably something to do with the difference in conditions that we have. Yeah, so these are like main differences, really.
Thank you.
Jill?
Back to fins.
Oh.
We have a fair few women who sail here now. We're all a bit lighter than
Go
them.
girls.
So if you buy a board and it comes with a fin, is it designed for an 80-kilo float?
Yeah.
That's an average weight for float.
Yeah, yeah.
What do we do to make that board work for us?
Cut it in half.
Yeah.
You need to
You put,
42 kilos, what
So
do you do?
yeah.
We're sort of 60s or 50s rather than 80s.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And you're right, they are probably, most boards will be designed for sort of a 70 to 80 kilogram male windsurfer. I know there are some brands that do women-specific boards. I know Patrick used to do some freestyle and wave boards, like small ones that were designed specifically for women. Something you should be accounting for, though, that if you take a woman who's 50 kilograms and a man who's 80 kilograms at the exact same level, you should be on different boards. So if that man's on a 130-litre board, the women should be able, at the same level, be able to uphaul still the same, but on a 100-litre board. Yeah. So even though so if you buy a board, Jill, that's designed, you know, that, so say it's an 80-litre wave board with a 28-centimetre fin in, you might still be able to uphaul that, whereas Rob wouldn't. Yeah, so even though the board's the same, and it's still, you know, it's designed for you, but at different levels. If that makes sense. So you should be like, for George, for example, how much do you say you weigh, George? 50 kilograms. Yes, I mean, he says that you should be on a, like, your low wind board would be like an 80-litre board. You know, a high wind board, you could be looking at like 60 litres. If you're on bigger boards, it might be a reason for being overpowered all the time.
Yeah, but sails will be designed differently, and everything, not everything, even clothes, everything is designed differently.
I mean, they'll take into account the fact that smaller riders will be on smaller boards. So for example, like, you know, like your 60-litre wave boards and stuff, even the best of the best, they're not using them. They're too small. So, you know, those really small boards, they will be designed for smaller people. Even, you know, like 80-litre wave boards and stuff like that. There's very few pro riders that will be, so they won't be designing them really for the pro riders. They'll be designing them for smaller windsurfers. Yeah. So it's, even though, like, if you know, I know you get to the beach and you see everybody getting the 120-litre board out, you think, well, I best go on something similar. But actually, for me, for example, I weigh about 15 kilograms more than most people. So if I was at their level, I should be taking a board that suits my weight. Yeah. So I would be going on a board that's slightly bigger. Take another example. If I have two people, so if I have male X who is 90 kilograms and wants to learn the foot straps, and he's doing a lesson, shared private lesson with his wife, who is 50 kilograms, female Y, I'm going to put him on a 148-litre gecko. But I'm not going to put her on a 148-litre gecko. She's going to go on a 100-litre gecko. And they'll both still be able to uphaul. They'll both still be able to sail at wind, but she's going to be on a board that's much more controllable for her. If the board's too big, it has the same effect as having a fin. It's going to always feel like you're losing control of it, like it's going to start bouncing, especially when it gets choppy.
Could I cheat and put a smaller fin on if I wanted to stick with a bigger?
It would help a little bit, yeah, definitely. But I would look to, you know, like the club now, from what I've heard, has got a big range of gear. Go try some of the smaller boards out, see what they're like. You know, especially if they're a bit different to the ones that you're using. You know, George, if you can, try and find, I'm sure there's like an old Goya wave board that we were going to use as a simulator there. That's like 70 litres. You could go give that a whirl for, you know, a couple of see how you get on with it.
The trouble is when the wind drops, that's the trouble.
That affects all of us.
Yeah, but you can use it. I don't have that.
Yeah, but George, even if the wind drops, if you're only 45 kilograms, 70-litre wave board, you're still fine.
Oh yeah, but I'm just bored.
Yeah, but then that's what you got your big gear for.
Do all new boards chip? Do all new boards chip really easily? Because I can't, my boards, I can't, you know, I throw them around a lot. So all these new boards, they all seem to chip. Do you know any boards that don't?
I mean, there is some put like a coating down the side of them protects it a bit better. Others don't. Like others, it feels like it's just paint and it's just. But I mean, boards seem to get more expensive and less durable with each passing year. It's rare to find brands now that are really pushing to make boards that last. There are a couple kind of smaller brands like Flicker is a good one. I have to say Bruch. He also is making boards that are a bit more durable, but they're quite kind of specific to kind of, for example, Bruch is mainly wave sailing and freestyle now. Flicker is also mainly sort of waves and freestyle. But I know, like, you know, Pete Francis, I'm sure he's got his Flicker. I'm sure he'll swear by it. So there are some brands out there still fighting for the people. But it seems like most are just trying to get as much money out of us and give us as poor quality as possible at the minute.
Have we got time for a few? Yeah, we have. If anybody's got any more.
Could you give us a quick 30-second guide to cart jack?
Oh, yeah. In 2 words. 2 words. Help us.
Well, but I just give a video instead. Carve jibe. Remember, backhand back. Enter board. Don't go across the wind. Make sure you go downwind before you start. Step over the board like you mean it, like you're falling down a rabbit hole. Counterbalance rig. So rig out the turn, body into the turn. Stay low when you do your feet. And nice and aggressive in the rig flip. As you flip the sail, push the hips forwards, and that will send everything forwards. Don't stay low in the rig flip. Stand up nice and tall.
Oh, how do you do that? How do you push you? I've not heard that one.
It's a bit hard when you're short.
Yeah, is it that? No, I didn't know about pushing your hips forward.
Yes, that's something that comes if you practice your helitacts. Anybody that's been to Greece or on the previous clinics will know we spent a lot of time doing the helitacts in the mornings. When you are flipping the rig, if you stay low, the gear, when you stay low, your bum's off the back of the board, the sail will follow you towards the back, and that's when it ends up behind you. So as soon as you release your backhand and the sail starts to rotate, you push the hips forwards, stand up nice and tall, and that will keep the sail upright, and it keeps it in front of you. Ooh. Yeah? Top tip.
And you have to pull it, my problem sometimes, like yesterday, we were sort of dropping it, you know, you have to sort of pull it across to.
That's exactly what this thing. So for example, if I'm going around my carve jibe, I'm coming around like this, I'm staying nice and low. Yeah. As soon as I release that backhand, if I stay like this, when I try and take the sail, it's going to pull me because I'm already bending over it for it to pull me over. So as soon as I release, I'm going to push the hips forwards and stand up nice and tall. Yeah?
I do that quite often, get pulled forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're being pulled forwards because your carve jibe's gone really well, but you're still in that same position. Then you want to stop being pulled forwards, you're going to stand up nice and tall. Yeah.
I want to do that now. There's still some wind there.
We'll all judge you.
Yeah. I don't care.
It's the same. It's the easiest way to describe it. It would be like you're playing tug of war. So imagine you're playing tug of war with somebody, and then when you release that backhand of the sail, all the pressure goes. It's the same thing like someone just letting go of the other person is letting go of the rope. You're pulling. If someone just lets go of the rope and you stay like that, you'll just fall over. But as soon as you think they're going to let go, you just stand up straight. And then you won't get pulled over. Yeah?
Yeah. Any other good questions?
No, I thought you did very well for 30 seconds.
Well, I think I went over a bit there.
you want to do a fast tack in 10 seconds?
That's fine.
Fast tack in 10 seconds.
Fast tack.
No.
No, that's all right. Doesn't matter.
Yes, it's not the time for me, Vince. Front foot around the mast foot. Make sure you get the board right up into the wind. Whiff waff of the sail, so just before you jump round, sheet in as hard as you can. That's a good tip a lot of people don't do, because that will propel you around the mast foot onto the side and it keeps the sail out the way of you. Otherwise, as you go up, you'll just pull the sail into you. Worst thing to do when you go into your tack, as soon as you step up, is you pull the sail into here. So before you go into the tack, front foot around, pull the sail in and back with the back hand to put as much power in it and let the front arm extend as much as you can. Yeah? That puts as much power in the sail. So when you release that back hand, Peter Hart calls it the whiff waff. So the sail moves away from you, then it gets pulled towards you very fast. And as it's been pulled towards you, so you've released that power, the clue's gone, it's coming back at you, then you bounce around. Yeah? It's a little bit difficult to demonstrate over Zoom. It'd be easy, a little bit, that one would be a bit easier in person. But I would suggest, if you haven't looked at it, go and look at a Peter Hart video. Just type in Peter Hart whiff waff. And then you can see it working real time.
Thanks.
And then stay low when you exit.
Should we stop on that one? Any other last note? No, that was brilliant. That was
Yeah,
stuff.
well done.
Yeah. And who's going to boss this year?
Me.
Yeah, loads of us. It gets
That's
higher and
nearly
higher.
half, I think.
I'm looking at all of you.
Yeah, thanks. See you in Capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, thank you guys for coming. Oh, Rich, go on. I can see you.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Is there a
What was
live
that?
stream?
Are you doing these sessions, Sunday night sessions tomorrow?
Yeah, that's on tomorrow. Yeah.
Commendable.
I'm just going to play this.
Ollie, does everybody know about it?
No.
Well, if you don't know, every Sunday I do something similar to this, just with everybody's laptop instead of just me. And I have a Facebook group. Maybe I can share quickly with you here. So if you're not in the Facebook group yet, join the Facebook group. Just type in Ollie Anderson Windsurf Coach on Facebook. You can stick your videos in. If you've got any videos, and every Sunday we go over the videos, give you some tips. So we've got, I think this week it will be Shirley, well, Pete, Neil and Clive have put some stuff in. So we'll be looking through them this week.
Nice.
Yeah, gonna be good.
Guys doing? There's no water.
There is.
I don't know what Clive's up to. And yeah, so I'm sure I'll see at least some of you there in Kos. I've got some clinics on, so if anybody wants to join any of the clinics, I've got some in June, some in September. If not, I'm available for coaching all the time while I'm there. Yeah, it'd be great to see as many of you out there as possible. If anybody wants any info, you know where to find me. Facebook, WhatsApp, email, whatever. Yeah. Top stuff.
Nice one, Ollie. Bye.